Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce something that we have been working on for the past several months. The Back to Party Finder podcast. Brought to you by the Waffle House, a Final Fantasy XIV community. This episode was recorded May 28th and has been selected as our debut. Please take note that Runa's audio had some issues at the time of recording. I did my best to clean it up, but there are still some minor hiccups. And now, without further ado, I introduce to you our first episode. Welcome back to Party Finder, everybody. I'm your host, System Senpai, and we're here to be gabbing about gaming and other things Final Fantasy XIV. Joining me is the lovely Runa.
Hi.
The beautiful Belle.
Hi.
The sophisticated Xivan.
Greetings.
And as a special guest today, we have the wonderful Morsheira.
Ahoy, hoy.
Hello there, friends. A new person.
And we are here to be talking about, the brand new 6.4 patch and all of its lovely things that has been coming in, especially with the raids just around the corner. Boy, I bet everyone is super duper excited about that, aren't they?
Ooh,
I am.
most definitely.
Not gonna lie, little hype.
So who would like to open up with the first subject?
Go ahead, Belle. I think so. It's been a while, and I've missed y'all's voices. Let's do this.
Okay. Let's talk about the normal raids. They were really fun. I really liked them, and the story kind of made me tear up a little bit. Has anybody else done the normal raids?
I've done them.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna fight her. I'm gonna fight her so hard. I cannot wait for Savage because I'm gonna kick her dang butt for doing what she did to Eric.
I had the P12 theme on loop for a solid 7 hours straight at one point. That theme is magnificent.
Oh yes.
Can I just put it out there? I'm going to say something that you're all going to be like, thanks, I hate it, but you'll never be able to unsee it. I swear, she looks like if Medion and Titania had a love child. That's all I can see, and I can't unsee it, and everybody I tell that to is just like, thanks, I hate it.
I was just say, I will say, there is that minion that drops. I got it on my first run. I've been smacking that damn thing around.
Well, to me, when I got in there, I was like, this is the Medion I have always wanted. Thanks, game. And this is because, when I was going through the Endwalker story, that is literally, in my imagination, that is exactly how I pictured Medion's final form would become when she, she did all of her inevitable evil form transformation as a final boss. I honestly did not expect the floating head with wings emo child. That one came out of left field. I'm like, what? Huh? And then I see this
Don't you
character.
just love that?
I'm just like, this is Medion right here. It's like, what? What happened? Was there like a miscommunication?
Jesus.
But yes, it does definitely feel like it's Medion and Titania had a love child.
Mm-hmm.
In the fight? Oh God, the fight.
E4S.
I've watched so many people die to when she gives the inanimate object a soul and it freaking wow out from under you.
E4S all over again.
I like it though. I really
Yeah.
do. And it I don't know, man. It looks like a lot of fun for Savage. I'm hyped. I am so hyped for Savage next week. Like, ooh.
It actually does look like a lot of fun, but
So am I.
I'm just super excited that with the normal mode, with the story mode, we don't have a big, ridiculously animu cutscene to it that we have to sit there for forever cringing through. In the middle of the fight. So I'm super hyped about that not being there.
No doubt.
I'm expecting it to be there for phase 2.
oh yeah, she'll definitely
Yeah,
transform.
maybe.
Like she will.
Yeah.
The form that we fought is the door boss, and there is a confirmed boss after it. So we will have to watch an animation.
Right.
So there is that. But go on.
Yes, but it's not something like, Gaia dramatically yeeting herself through the air to rescue Reen from the stack of ice level of cringe of, I will save you because I have reasons.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It's,
I
so
kind of
it's not
enjoyed
that
it.
kind of cringe.
Was that
We
Xivan?
love the cringe.
I kind of enjoyed it.
It was just, I think what they were trying to, I think what you were trying to say is, like, it's great on the first time watch, but every time you go back into normal, you have to do that every single frickin' time. You're like,
True. The repetition, yes. I agree with that. I couldn't, like, for Emerald Weapon, for instance, I could not stand farming that for that reason alone, but for a first time thing, I enjoy those, like, kind of melodramatic cutscenes. Add a bit of extra gravitas.
They're always fun the first time. The problem I have with them is because they are unskippable and everything, and they're usually not the shortest things. You have to sit through them so many times, especially if you're trying to farm for something, that it's just like, oh, my eyes and my ears are bleeding. Please, no more.
It's fun on the first time, but on the 50th time and the 70th time, it gets a little old.
Mhm.
Well, since we're all pretty much on board on the same subject here, why don't we go through fight by fight and let's see what you guys think of each individual fight, one after another. So let's start with P9. What do you guys really like about that one?
Oh, that thing was creepy. The concept of it just taking the various souls from the ethereal sea and embodying them to the effect of combat, it's rather
Yeah.
unsettling
You recognize
concept.
those voices?
No, I tried to picture in my head who those voices might have come from, but the memory escaped me.
So the different voices, I think I don't want to say nothing. I'll wait. You go ahead. But it was super creepy, but it wasn't as creepy as the next one, to be fair.
Well, honestly, maybe this is just because I've played way too many variety of video games, some by the same people who had similar input. All I could think was, the nobodies from Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of got some creepy steroids, and that was about it. Like, that was the vibe I was getting the whole way through from just the visual on it. Was a lot of Kingdom Hearts nobodies, particularly the first set of mobs you meet that are the standard kind of swoopy guys.
Well, let me direct y'all's attention to our podcast discussion so you can see what my no context pandemonium meme that I found.
Oh boy. Well, P9.
Yeah.
P9 struck me in a very unique way. Avid fan of the Eureka content that we have in Final Fantasy XIV, and that fight was a humongous callback to, anyone who's ever done any high-end Eureka stuff. Because all of the souls that the monster was eating was essentially, he was basically consuming the buffs for Eureka, the logograms. So
I saw that. I was curious, but I didn't know for sure.
he even had the exact same icons. I'm just like, oh boy, here we go. So, in many respects, because we've seen a lot of those, I'm almost expecting a lot more in the Savage version, because there was quite the collection of spirits that you can pick up for Eureka, and we only saw 3. I think I can't name them off the top of my head, but we saw 3. So same icons too. But go on.
I did definitely find it really, really interesting that how each time it consumed a spirit, like its posture changed, its fight mechanics changed, but its voice would change as well. Like just that whole switching where it wound up feeling very unique because it almost felt like you had multiple bosses that you were fighting as it cycled through, which multiple bosses without multiple targets.
Which is what also made me think of Eureka, but go on.
Which, is not the most common thing to see. So it was very much in many ways, a refreshing change of pace from the normal. You just have one thing that kind of has the same set patterns and will repeat them to a point and getting gradually more difficult to a point. So it was definitely nice to see a variation on that formula.
Have you ever fought Proto-Ozma in the Belldandy Arsenal?
No, I have not made it that far. That's like one of the things in Eureka I still need to get to because I'm pretty close to the end of Eureka, but I haven't made it there yet.
Yep, because that's exactly what Ozma does.
Okay.
Ozma, Ozma has multiple shapes: star shape, cube, and pyramid. And each of those shapes is basically like an entirely different boss fight because they have an entirely different flow. They have entirely different, like, the mechanics are there, but they're in a slightly different order. Each one is basically essentially its own mini phase, and you have to treat differently from the other shapes. So even the auto attacks are different. The AoEs going out are different. Everything's timing is different. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, each one is its own little mini boss with its, all in the same theme. So you're not just learning one boss, you're learning multiple. So that was another reason why I was getting real Eureka vibes from this guy. And the fact that it's already in a sort of a Charlatan themed-ish arena, I'm just like, oh boy, this is like the Eureka fight we never actually had. So, yay.
Honestly, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it will be really, really interesting to see what they do in Savage with that, assuming they continue that theme, which I imagine they will.
It just makes me super sad that it's not really a boss from Eureka, because I know for a solid fact, if it was a boss from Eureka, every time he switched to a different soul, his element would change too. So you would have to keep your elemental wheel on auto spin. That would have been a nice element to throw in, but that's just me.
Honestly, I think that we're going to have a lot to deal with Savage on that one. It doesn't seem like it's going to be very hard on that one. Like, Proto wasn't very hard. It was just a lot of running. So I think on 9, it's not going to be very hard. It's just going to be figuring out which one's going to go off first. It's going to be hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what really freaked me out? So, what really freaked me out about the new raid tier, though, other than 9, was 10. 10 really creeped my shit.
Well, before we talk about
It's
10, I was wondering if Xivan had any thoughts about 9. We haven't heard from him.
yeah.
Well, I think the one biggest question I have is, do we actually know the souls the creature was embodying? I'm assuming the last one, the beast, was some manner of behemoth based on the ecliptic meteors, but the mage and the second one, I can't recall if they were a monk or machinist, based on what I've been hearing.
If it was
Do we know who those two are?
Martialist was normally done by the melees, so that was normally monk, I believe, if my memory is correct. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was monk too. I just saw on Twitter some people were calling it a machinist, and I was like, wait, what?
I have to go back and look at all the Eureka souls to see which one was tied to which. So, because each one was tied to a different class. So, I think each one also had 2 to pick from. So there wasn't just one that you had to get. There was like you had either an A or a B option. So,
But now the souls themselves, with their voices, do we know for certain whether or not those were any established characters, or if those were simply wandering souls that we've never met?
I have a little bit of stuff for you. So you know how it's called the mythic creation Kokiotos, right? Or Kokiotos. I can't ever say its name. Kokiotos? I can't remember quite off the top of my head. But when the description of it says, like a blotch of dark ink on a serene canvas, pandemonium now floats foreboding upon the ethereal sea. From its gates has emerged a beast with an insatiable appetite for souls. Okay. Now with
Yes.
that, he has his whole fighter phase. He has like the whole gluttony's augur, the ravening, like things like this, right? So there has been some theory crafting about it. I wonder if I can find it so that I'm not talking out my yeah. Uh let me see if I can find you the theory crafting that I saw in another server of mine with some friends. So they were talking about the actual mythology of that god. He's supposed to be the river in the underworld in Greek
Yes.
mythology.
The river
So
of the river
the
of
river of the
wailing.
dead. Yeah, or
Yeah.
it says he's the river of wailing. You're right, because it flows into Acheron or Acheron, which is the river of the dead. So there's 5 rivers technically in actual mythology. So it is the underworld river of wailing, and it's God. So there's also Styx, Acheron, Pripylegathon, Leith, and Acheron, right? So they're talking about how Acheron, I'm sorry. So it's talking about how those souls are people that we know that we've, killed in the ethereal sea that still have an insane, like just a grudge like in their soul. Like I don't know how to explain it, how they were talking about, because I can't find the thing now. But I would have bet they deleted it. But it's supposed to be. That's why he talks about in different voices, and it's a voice, and it's like a little girl's voice sounding like, and all this other stuff, because it's supposed to be of wailing, of the souls, of all this other stuff. It's insane. I really like how Final Fantasy's creators, like Square Enix, pull from a lot of real mythos. It's kind of
yeah.
cool. One of my favorite things, honestly.
They pull from a lot of mythos, and they pull from a lot of like art history.
So
And stuff.
I can't find the post anymore as to what they said, but there was some theory crafting about the specific souls that it was that were speaking. I'll see if I can find it later, and I'll throw it at you there, Devon, if I can find it.
Marvelous. That would be appreciated. The identity of these souls has been a persistent curiosity on my mind.
Yeah.
On the matter of a lot of the fights following the mythos, a lot of the pandemonium fights, and if they are like this raid tiers fights, if they are dragging in a mythos, because a lot of the stuff with the Ascians of the 12 is based off Greek mythology. That's where you find a lot of the mythos for this raid tier. And if y'all are ever interested, there's some really interesting ones. I urge you, if you enjoyed the Agdistis fight but ever wondered why the hell she was a tree, go Google your Greek mythology on Agdistis.
Oh
I
my
shall look
god.
into that.
Well, if you'd like, I can just tell you, because she, love her. Love this thing. I love that they pulled from it, right?
It is very not safe for work, as a fair warning.
I won't say those things, but she was a hermaphrodite. So, hermaphroditic deity, born when the Earth Mother was accidentally impregnated by the sleeping sky god. We don't talk about that. Just,
yeah.
Other than that's the tamest thing I can say about this. Other than that, I recommend, like they said, like to go to go read about it, because everything else is not allowed.
Read,
Not allowed. I'm not allowed to
Don't
read
do the
it.
sort of thing that.
Yeah, how dare I make you read? How, gosh.
We just need a minute-long censor on the podcast when we talk about that, just to feel like noise.
I mean,
go on.
The one part that can really be said is, at one point, their blood is spilt, and when their blood is spilt, from the drops of the blood, an almond tree is grown, which is why when you see the Agdistis fight, it is a tree.
I was going to say, let's try to proceed on back to Spider Hut now. Or P10.
Oh, please, not this one.
I liked this one.
We're going to be fighting pandemonium.
Can I share my thoughts about this one really quick?
Go ahead.
When it comes to P10, The actual normal mode was it was triggering my OCD because it felt like it was holding back. And I know it was because, of course, Savage. But I got the same kind of feeling from P2 back when we were dealing with Hippocampus, or Toilet Horse, as we like to call him. I despise the normal mode for Hippocampus, but I really like the Savage version. Hate the normal, love the Savage. And I'm getting the same vibes from this fight.
Yeah, I didn't. Literally got pulled into that the other day to the regular Hippo, and I hated it so much when it dropped, and I still hate it now because I was like, "Oh, great, it's the angry dog," and someone goes, "It's a horse," and I was like, "That's an ugly horse," because I hated it.
But like I
So
said,
Sewer donkey.
but like I said, the Savage version of Hippo, I can stand a lot more because mechanically, it's making more sense. It's utilizing its arena properly. There's actual stuff to do. We're not just kind of sitting there waiting for the fight to eventually catch up to us. And that's a lot of what P10 feels like to me. It's like you have this whole arena, and the vast majority of the time you're just kind of looking at it. It's like, oh, we got these two platforms that we're just almost never using. And then we have the spider webs that, there's definitely more that you can do with the spider webs. And it just feels like, oh, well, damn. It's just that the normal mode just feels like they turned off 90% of the fight and then didn't know what to do with it. And so it's just very unfun because it mechanically doesn't make logical sense. We just got stuff happening, and all I'm doing is just sitting there. I guess I'll remember that for Savage. But like overall, the fight doesn't really synergize or have a big theme. You're coming in from P9, which has all this fantastic theme. Like it's got the themes, it's got it's got the whole the voice work, it's got the it's moving between the different phases, and you're all on board. And then you get to this guy, and it just feels like you're just kind of beating up a training dummy in a dark room.
Indeed, it did feel a little half-baked when I first did it.
You know how they develop these fights? They do the Savage first, and then they remove elements to make it the normal.
yeah, so I think that no, yeah, I can definitely see that. So I think that it's going to be the hardest one. I know that sounds strange that we did the normal, and I think it's going to be the hardest one, but let me kind of explain this a bit. I think what's really going to trip us up are those extra platforms, and then the fact that the spider webs connect to the little pegs on the corners of each corner of everything. Not only to make the bridges, but on the back ones too. I have a feeling it's going to be the toughest one, and he does the side eye either way, as well as that big away in the center right now, just a normal. I think people are going to get tripped up the most with that. They're going to get tripped up with the Savage part of it, of all of it, because it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be as intuitive as the normal is. Like, you can obviously see the lines connecting the AoEs to each other if you get too close, and you can't have another person in there, otherwise it gets them too. And you can see the tethers; they keep popping up all over the place. Those tethers. Ooh.
I'm gonna call
Go
this.
ahead.
I'm gonna call this now. Before I've even seen the fight, I already know what's going to happen. So this is a pure hypothetical. I'm just going to say I'm calling this mechanic, even though I've never seen it. But this is probably going to be what's going to be really going to be the party finder threshold. I think the fight will be fine overall. I think it's going to give people a bit of a struggle for the first week, but I think people will be able to clear it. But it's going to be able to handle this mechanic. What is this mechanic? It's going to be a combination of three things, which is what normally you get in Savage. It's going to be the spider webs, because you have to align the spider webs in a certain way to where everyone is either going to get bound or heavy. Then he's going to do the big old knockback. So he's going to smash into the arena, and the only way you're going to survive is to be either bound by a web or getting caught by one. So there's that. And then he's immediately going to follow that up with a half room cleave. With that big fat head is going to then immediately pop out and then do a big. So anybody who's caught on the wrong side of the arena, if they live from the knockback, will still get fried. So Not only so, it's gonna restrict everybody to a tiny sliver of a platform, where with the webs and getting knocked back in the right way, and they could even go a step further by saying, "Oh, and by the way, you all have puddles, so that way you can't overlap." So
I could see that happening.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening, and yeah, because Savage is Savage, and that just sounds like something that they do with those resources. That would be a very big sort of a leap hurdle. But I think overall, that fight isn't going to be as bad as people think. It looks horrifying because it's all in your imagination, because the fight hasn't really been introduced to you. The normal mode was definitely very, very restricted, very, very held back, and it doesn't make any sense. And I really do think it will start clicking when everyone actually gets to finally see it. I do believe that the one that people had the most fun with is probably going to be the third fight. That's probably really going to be the one that holds people back, but that's just me. But anyway, I'll shut up. You guys share your thoughts about Spider Hut now.
Yeah, Xivan, do it.
I adore the beast's design. Truly, probably, I think, one of the more creative monstrosities in Pandemonium. A giant spider building made of flesh.
That's why I call him Spider Hut.
Truly.
Spider Hut. Okay, he straight up looks like the baby doll head with no hair and one eye put onto like those metal Kinects from Toy Story, like Sid's little spider dude. That's what he looks like to me. Straight up. I can't unsee it. I can't.
Honestly, I can see it too.
And he's like, I already don't like spiders. Well, I have a thing about spiders. I can't do spiders. I play other games and they have spiders in it. Like I was playing Hogwarts Legacy the other day and I put on arachnophobia mode and I still couldn't do it. They looked creepier. So spider things don't work for me. And that thing is for sure a spider robot thing. And I'm not the one. It's going to freak me out. I'm going to panic in that one. I can already tell.
Yeah, for me, it's the fast spiders that I can't stand.
Yeah, no. And the whole, do you know what Pandemonium is from, Xivan?
Is it Final Fantasy II?
Yes, but also remember that they pull from Greek mythology.
Oh, you're talking about beyond the series, right?
Yes. I know, right? We all revolve around Final Fantasy quite often.
I mean,
I see something IRL and I go, is this a Final Fantasy reference?
You're like the guy with the freaking butterfly asking if it's a pigeon. Oh. That's it. We need a meme with Xivan holding something in his hand. A meme, and it's like, is this Final Fantasy 14? So Pandemonium is actually technically the capital of hell. That was in there's an epic poem by John Milton called Paradise Lost. So it's supposed to be like, it's in Greek though, it stems from Pan and I believe it is Daimonian. So Pandemonium, it translates kind of roughly to all demons, right? Or all demon place. So Pandemonium is hell. So it is quite interesting, I think, that we get Pandemonium, which is supposed to be hell with all the demons, right?
Right.
So we're straight up fighting demons. And I thought I was Satan. Which is my name on Discord. Listen, I'm just having a blast. I'm having a blast with this because I love this mythology, right? Like I love that what they're pulling from it. It is just so fun to me to see. I love Greek mythos. So it's really great. And I know you were talking about it too, weren't you?
Yes. I definitely do a deep dive into a lot of the mythos that you see presented in here. Much of it I deep dived into before because I was a major ancient history buff with a huge focus on mythologies. Like Greek happened to be one of the focal points. Ancient Egypt mythology was another huge focus point. So this whole raid series with how much it dives into the Greek mythology is just a major tickle point. Like it makes me so happy seeing all these references.
Yeah, I agree. So the thing with that is like I actually spoke about this uh with my partner and everything as well, is that it's really funny to see the Japanese take on the Greek mythos, right? Like it's very perspective. Like you can see like what they took from it, right? And it's just it kind of cracks me up sometimes. It's a little bit funny the way
Yeah.
that they do it. I don't know. I'm pretty excited though. I they keep going and they did Euphrosyne last 24-man raid. Come on. Y'all know what Euphrosyne is, right?
Enlighten
Mhm.
us.
Ohio, the one that we did? Oh, do you want to do it? Do you want to tell them? You're our guest.
I'm struggling to get the words in my head right now, so I'd say go ahead because it's just yeah.
No worries. So Euphrosyne is actually the Greek goddess of I believe it was charities. So and of good cheer, joy, and mirth. Her name literally means merriment. So I think it's so cool that we go through Euphrosyne. She's one of the graces, like one of the deities of graces, or because there's multiple ancient Rome deities called the graces. So, and in Greek, it's the charities. That's what they're called. So when we talk about Booba and the Booba Gang, it cracks me up that Euphrosyne is the name of it, because if you think about it, Euphrosyne quite literally reminds me so much of Nafika.
Well, it makes sense that they called it that because if you look at it at that, literally the arenas we're fighting in are within the different elemental heavens. So it makes a lot of sense that, and I actually find it's a really interesting contrast with the two raids we've got going on. Like there's the Alliance raid, which takes place in with the thematic of the heavens, and then you have the normal raids like the 8-man raids, which are taking place in a region referenced in many ways to the Hells. So I do find that dichotomy and that theming all across the board to be very, very interesting.
I do like how much we're moving away though from the whole Heidelin and Zodiac thing, right? So we're moving away. We're no longer mommy and daddy are no longer fighting, and we're coming into, oh, you believe in God, right? And here we go into the whole mythos of this. And it's crazy how we are a part of this entire community that has created like their own mythos within this world. And it is just cracking me up because when we first went through Euphrosyne, people are like, that's my God.
I had some good laughs with the whole Alliance raid and some of the references they made, especially with Thaliak and Nimia. I know they afterwards in the post raid quests explained that a little bit more. But there were some things that had me raising an eyebrow based off the established lore, especially from 1.0 regarding the 12, and then how they were actually presented.
Oh,
Now,
you
for
mean
those-
how Menfina is their daughter and their siblings?
Yes, Menfina and Azima are the children of Thaliak and Nimia, yet the whole way through the Thaliak and Nimia fight, they're calling each other brother and sister. And so I had some eyebrow raise there when doing it for the first time. Yeah.
Mythology. If you know anything about Greek mythology, is that family tree is whack.
No, the family tree is a wreath.
That's like, yeah, it's not a tree, it's definitely a reef. I agree.
Well,
Mhm.
I'm going to rein the conversation back into what you guys thought about P11.
Oh,
The feels, yes, yes.
Now that fight looks like a lot of fun, and a lot of people
I cried.
a lot of people were really, going off the wall. The fact that it takes place in the congregation,
The hall of the
yeah,
yes, the
convocation.
convocation.
convocation chamber,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh wow, this looks very familiar. Gee, and then the fight music was right from Shadowbringers. So it was like,
Oh my god. We got to fight Elidibus again.
mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
I'm about to cry right now. That tore at me.
I
know,
did
like-
not want to.
Yeah.
Leave
Listen.
Elidibus alone. Like,
I
he's
know. I mean, if it wasn't for the
Poor
fact that he
baby.
was like, I've been wanting to see how we'd fare against each other ever since we've met, and I've seen you fight in the pandemoniums. I'm like, oh, you poor sweet summer child, I've already beat you.
Right.
Please
was
don't
not
make
ready
me
for the
do it
seat of
again.
sacrifice trauma.
What was that, Xivan?
Yeah.
I was not ready for the seat of sacrifice trauma.
Oh,
Right.
And then they gave you the text dialogue option where you could choose, I really don't want to kill you again. And it's like, oh.
He's like, well, don't worry, I'm not actually him. Wink and a
Yeah.
finger gun.
You winking a finger
Right.
gun. All right, buddy Christ, let's go. I'm crying and I know I shouldn't cry, but Themis is like my favorite out of all of Endwalker. Like, I like Eric Thonos, and I love the fact that we got to see Silver Fox La Habrea. But I just can't get over Themis. He is the best little comet boy in the whole world. I absolutely love his role. The whole balance, being the emissary, it's stuff that we've been seeing from him since ARR, right?
Mhm.
Like that man in the white robe since oh god. And he was, even when he was tempered by Zodiark, right? Even then, he still was the emissary. He still was about the balance, even if it was a bit on the fanatic side at that point. And the fact that we get to see him and meet him and talk to him and see his story about La Habrea and just like meeting them all before they became these just evil Asians that we know and we see on, we were seeing on the daily basis. It's just insane to me. And then we have to fight him in Seat of Sacrifice and Shadowbringers. And I was not ready for that. And then we fight him again now as the emissary. And I was not ready.
The one thing I will say about him that is, and it catches me off guard absolutely every single time, is with Themis, when you finally see his face, not as much with Elidibus, but when he's as Themis and you see his face, I have such a disconnect between the voice actor voice they chose and his face. I love the character so much, but I have such a hard time with that because to me it doesn't feel like it matches. And it's so very jarring to me looking at that face and hearing that voice and something in the back of my head's going, that's not right.
I always think of the Warrior of Light, where it's just because they use the same model, so that's why he's essentially looks exactly the same as his Warrior of Light mode. I'm just like, well, Warrior of Light was a pretty boy, so was he. So there you go. End of story.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Like, it's just, I love the character so much, and I feel so bad for him. Poor guy got the short end of the stick and everything. But
Yeah.
I have such a disconnect where it's like, oh my goodness, I cannot reconcile that voice with that face.
He is literally okay. So I've had obviously a few favorite characters. Anybody that went through Heavensward the first time, Harchafont, of course, best friend. And then you get, all the giraffe boys in Heavensward are amazing. Love all the giraffe boys. And then I still cry about Harchafont every now and then. Like, I get so invested in this game, you guys. I get so sad. I am not an emotional person, but Final Fantasy makes me hella emotional. I'm
No-
telling you.
I'm right there with you. That one cutscene in Endwalker at the end of Elpis, it broke me. It wrecked me.
But just to kind of close out the subject, does anybody else have anything they want to talk about P11 before we move on to P12?
Oh yes, I do have one thing I want to add. The fact that I noticed that Elidibus actually using some of Zodiark's attacks from the level 83 trial at some point in the raid. I was rather pleased with that. those callbacks. Like the Tank Buster sticks, I believe.
So does that mean that Zodiark took those attacks and those essences from Themis Elidibus because this technically happened before Zodiark was created, or does that...
He was
Because
his heart.
Zodiark it was not Zodiark per se. Zodiark was broken up into pieces. It was Fandaniel as Zodiark that we fought. Remember?
And he didn't even have full control. And the reason why is because don't forget that Themis was at first Zodiark's heart before he chose to depart from it.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, if I recall also, Fandaniel mentioned that, like, after Elidibus was slain, Zodiark was effectively inert. I'm pretty sure Themis Elidibus was sort of the driving consciousness behind Zodiark. Effectively, he was Zodiark in a way.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Spot on. He was essentially the sacrificial lamb to which the embodiment of the actual being was forged. You got to have a starting point, a foundation, and that'd be him.
Yeah, one other thing about the whole Elidibus Themis, because ephemeral justice fight. It was honestly fun. I know it was a lot of running like usual and figuring out that some of those tank busters were actual, the mechanic. The next thing you got to hop in or stay out, or you know what I'm saying. So all of this, like his moves, the same kind of Zodiark stuff, it was just so fun. And hearing his voice, that voice actor, forever is going to be imprinted in my memory. Like it's never going to go away.
And I still think that fight is going to be the one that most PF is going to have some trouble with, even though it's the one that seems to click the easiest in normal mode. I think that it's gonna throw some stuff out of like a rabbit out of a hat, and it's going to be like oh. And that's going to throw a lot of people up. And I think it's because it's just going to be the speed of that fight. I'm having a feeling that clones are definitely going to be in the equation.
Yep. I mean, we did see the clones in this one as well.
Yeah.
Just so long as we don't get another orange floor with orange markers for the
Oh,
third
yes.
fight of a tier.
Oh my god.
Don't even remind me. I hated that.
Feels so bad for people who have red color blindness in that fight.
Well, moving on. So let's see. What's everyone's thoughts about P12 and let's just, and we already know that the oomph music was once you got in there you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, this is it's
this is where it's at.
I don't think it's going to compete with the Fall when it comes to how much of a slapper it's going to be, but it would be on the exact same disc, if you know what I mean. It'd like they'd be on the exact same record if they were going to like the top hits of this game. But I'll let you guys have that. What do you guys think?
But you digress.
I love how much of a deviation it is from the overall aesthetic tone of the Pandemonium raids, and it really works thematically too, facing essentially at this point a god.
Killing gods is what we do best.
Yeah. True.
It's kind of our MO, to the point where I had a couple eye-twitchy moments with the MSQ regarding that whole thing, but
yeah, it's like Zervin, like we've not Zervin, but Zero Miss. It's like what is this? Like you're just the next god is going to come up to bat, and you're even weaker than the other ones. Oh well, but anyway, we'll get into that charade later. I'll shut up.
Yeah.
I find the theming to be refreshing after snakes.
Well, this one's probably going to have its own nightmares, as I.
It will.
As I said when you guys came in here for the first time, I was like, this is the Meteon I never got. Like when I was going through the Endwalker MSQ for the first time, in my imagination, because like when I was going through the whole Elpis arc, the moment I saw Meteon, I immediately knew she was the final boss. Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm like, that's the final boss of this game. And then my imagination started to go wild. Like, what's your final form going to be? What's it going to look like? And this is where my imagination kept drifting. Like, you look at this P12 fight, her model was literally exactly what I was picturing the fight would be. And we ended up getting this disembodied head with big wings and an emo haircut. And I'm just like, what? It's like
crying emo tears.
Yeah, I'm just like, huh? We fight emo girl at the end of the universe? This is I mean,
Oh yeah, let me cry my inky tears.
yeah, and not only that, guys, not only was she crying, but she was also throwing up too. So she was pure emo.
I thought she was kind of cool, but then again, I'm very easy to please.
Oh, she was cool, but at the same time, it's just like it's not what I was expecting. It wasn't like the final image and what I was picturing did not connect at all. I'm just like, where did this come from? I mean, I know where it came from. It came from the imagination of the artist, and he has that, like, it was his style. It's like it has his, the whole thing is like, yeah, I see him there, but I'm just like, what the hell were you thinking? It's like but for those of you Final Fantasy XI players, I'm wondering if you guys thought what I thought. But we were essentially fighting a gender swap version of Promethea.
My God, I know exactly.
Okay, I can definitely see the similarities.
The final boss of the Chains of Promethea expansion for Final Fantasy XI.
I am very, very much ashamed to say that 11 is like the only Final Fantasy game I never was able to get to.
Yeah, I played Final Fantasy XI for 10 years, can't remember any of the story. Never really cared because they handled it very differently from 14. They were trying to handle it very much in you're just a body in the world to get used to it. There's nothing special about you. You're not a main character. You're just going to be sort of watching things happening in passing. Is kind of that's the direction of the story. And because of that, I just could not get invested because I'm like, who are these people? Why are they doing this? I don't care. It's not involving me. And the only time they come in, it was one of those classic cutscenes where you would have like all the main characters are there about to fight the boss. It's like, okay, everybody, this is the fight that we've all building up for. Let's fight the boss and save the world. And then you get into the actual cutscene, like you get out of it and get into the fight. None of them are there, and it's just you and your team. It's like, huh? What? Wait a minute. I thought, what? Yeah, I'm glad they kind of fixed that with 14, but again, I digress. Well, for me, I was getting a lot of E4S vibes from this fight, from how the platforms were being cut away and left to a small sliver, to, the wings glowing was essentially the exact same thing as Titan's fist glowing, but instead of it being locked to the arena, it was locked to the actual boss's hitbox. That was a nice twist. But still the same thing. Move here, go there, go there, go there, pay attention to the order in which they do. There's a lot of just very similar vibes, and I'm just like, oh boy, here we go again. Hey, at least she didn't have a go-kart mode.
Oh God, No, she did. She did. She had go-kart mode. Don't lie.
I meant that she didn't actually literally transform into a go-kart. That's mainly Moro.
Well, no, she didn't transform into a go-kart, but she definitely still pushed back.
Yeah.
See, I'm almost sad I completely missed that because I didn't do most of the Savage I did in Shadowbringers. I had started after that tier, so more stuff like, Rake the Past and whatnot. But I am kind of sad I missed that one because the memes are real.
Well, don't feel too sad because right around the corner, in the latter half of 6.4 going into 6.5, we have our level 80 Blue Mage, and guess what's going to be hot off the presses for the brand new reward?
Yes, I've been looking at that and I kind of was side-eyeing. It's like, oh, now I really, really need to work on my Blue Mage some more. I was already planning to, but it's like, now I really have to.
Yep.
It's worth it. Blue Mage is so much fun.
I can't wait.
Oh, yes. It's also great for training in general. If you're ever looking to get better in Savage and just improve as a player overall, definitely invest time into doing Blue Mage. And definitely do not look up guides. Just go through the entire carnival step by step and try to puzzle it out yourself. If you puzzle it out yourself, it's far more rewarding, but B, you actually feel like you learned something from the experience. If you just look it up and says, use this spell, do this spell for this spell, it defeats the purpose of the entire thing. It's really one of those things, it's almost like an exam. It's trying to teach you something, and instead of actually going through the course and doing the test properly, you just looked up all the answers online. Like, that's literally the equivalent. Do you get what I'm saying here?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
As someone who cleared the carnival, I think mainly through just trying to prog it in an afternoon, like certain fights, and just seeing what was needed for each one, I concur with your assessment.
And it's great skills that people can use, that they can adopt, and it's very much on par. If anyone's ever done Boza or Zadnor, some of those fights are pretty much right on par with doing a duel. So if you've ever done a duel in those where you're locked in the arena and you have to get those mechanics right, or congratulations, you failed the duel, rip. Yeah. So some of those are really heavy mechanics. You really have to get used to the pattern. But once you get the pattern, once you understand it, and once you get through the initial phase of everything, then it's just pretty much survive and eventually beat the boss within the time limit. But getting to that
Yeah.
point where you got to solve each of the mechanics is still the test. And the good news is you can just keep going right back in there and trying again. If you have all the spells, it's just a matter of figuring out which ones you need in which order and executing them properly.
See, the one thing I will say is the only merit I can see to looking at guides for that kind of thing is if you've already cleared and puzzled it out, and you're trying to go for like some of the specialty achievements, because some of the fights do have specialty achievements attached that can be ridiculously nitpicky and not straight up obvious how to achieve them. So that's
Well, that's almost the same as parsing. Like, if you ever go in there and you try to go back into the fight and be absolutely stupidly perfect, I mean, that's kind of the same mentality. Focus on getting the clear first and understanding the fight, and then do all the weird shenanigans after you've already got the clear and understand it.
well, exactly. I'm just saying, like I see that being more the best use and merit of those guides than just figuring out how to get through the fight itself.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Indeed. I've still only done one of those masked carnival challenges. I think the one involving Go-Go.
Mm-hmm. Which I still thought was hilarious going through that actual story, because I immediately knew what we were getting into just by the name of the quest and then the name of the character. And I'm just like, oh no. Oh no. Big spoilers for anybody who hasn't doing the Blue Mage thing. They give it away in the actual quest name, but you just got to have you just got to look at the pattern like, wait a minute, that name looks suspiciously funny. It was Golden Goliath, I believe his name, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Indeed.
That
sounds about right.
Yeah, and yeah, it's right there. Golden Goliath. I mean, if it doesn't click, write it down and then look at it.
Yeah, I had no clue who Go-Go was at first, so that one went right over my head when I did that quest.
Same.
Me, a avid Final Fantasy VI fan, was like, oh no, here it comes.
You said that name because I hadn't got there yet in Go-Go, but you said that name that I have played 6 many times. It's like, oh dear.
Yep.
Oh dearie dearie.
Yep.
But at least now I have an idea of what's to expect when I jump into the fight.
Maybe. It's one of those things that you just got to experience on your own. So, but at least you know he's coming, put it that way.
Indeed. All I'll say, it's a fun fight.
It is a fun fight, but it makes me wonder who the hell they're going to throw in there for the next one. Because if they're going to up it to 80, they're going to have another solo challenge. Because they had Siegfried, which is also from 6. You did him the previous tier. Then you got Go-Go. We got to have one at 80. So that's going to be the mystery. Who's going to be the one at 80? Yeah. They've basically run out of characters they can use from the Final Fantasy VI arena. So it's got to be somebody that they've already introduced in the story, just jazzed up a bit, or someone entirely completely new.
I'm just Mm.
Maybe they'll have us fight Siegfried and Azuros at the same time. I mean, not Azuros, as Omagia.
You know who I'd like to fight, and I think would be a pretty good one. Just sort of the kind of. It'd be nice if they brought it in and kind of combined it with the storyline with the Manderville quest, and actually put Manderville characters in there, such as we'll fight Godbert at one point, or fighting, or fighting Greg at one point. Go to old Gilgamesh.
That'd be a fight
and,
we would never win.
Greg.
Yeah, let's go fight old Greg.
I could see Gilgamesh being a fun one.
That'd be silly.
Godbert, on the other hand, I do not know if we would even have a chance of surviving
No.
against.
He's on a whole different tier. He's tapping into that rare energy called silliness, and you can't beat that.
And even he is but a fraction of the power Julian Mandeville possesses.
But I guess we'll go ahead and since no one really has any major comments about P12.
The music was
Rather than I'm
really
gonna
good.
fight her.
I kept dying
fun.
because I kept vibing to the music and trying to sing along, forgetting about the mechanics.
When I eventually stop hosting all these teaching and learning parties for Golbez, and I just go in there and just want to turn my brain off and farm him, I am so going to turn that music on. Shall we talk about the incomplete and utter train wreck that is this MSQ this time around?
Sure. That has been this MSQ since the main Endwalker story ended, and we're in filler. Yeah.
I smell a rant.
Yes. We're in Netflix piss poor streaming mode territory now because, oh my God, this hack writer I keep rating them down every single time. Like, that was a B+, B- ish when it came out first. I was like, it's kind of B grade. It's not great. Then last patch with Rubicante, I was like, C-. With this one, I'm all the way down at D- right now. I'm like, this person, why do they have a job? Like, did they lie on their resume? It's just like, what the heck's going on? This is terrible. Like, in every conceivable fashion, it is just terrible.
I think I've figured out, though, why they are doing the writing the way they are, where they're doing the whole, we're not going to tell you absolutely anything. Because if they told us anything at all, anybody who'd played Final Fantasy IV would know exactly every single step that's going to happen along the way, and they're trying to avoid that.
Which is exactly that's hack writing. If if anybody who's ever heard about those writers that decided to helm the end of Game of Thrones away from the actual author, and they kind of knee-jerk reaction to try and do the whole, we're going to zig when you think we're going to zag, haha, where they were kind of reading all the internet forums and Reddits and seeing what all the fan theories were. And they're like, oh no, they've guessed where we're going. We can't go with that story. Time to throw it all away, is exactly the sort of thing that I'm getting from this for no god-awful reason. It just makes things look dumb. Like, Zero Miss is the biggest example of the epitome of dumbness. It's like, and let's not even get me started on this not Golbez character, and I'm going to edit that out. Let's not even get me started about this not Golbez character, because but still, like, Zero Miss. The whole point that we were all building up to was like, the character Zero, her name is Zero. And then we know that Zero Miss was a, big boss from Zero Miss. Got to be a connection. Absolutely none whatsoever. It was just, this guy's just named Zero Miss for the heck of it. Like, what? What? Huh?
Oh, they did mention that name was from a hero of Eld in the original 13th. I'm wondering if there may be, just to play a bit of devil's advocate, there might be something more to that. That just hasn't been revealed yet. Like, even Zero seemed to question that a little in the end about the name.
I like to give the example of how it closely, like, even this one is following 4 so closely. Like, I guarantee it's going to come around where it's going to turn out that Golbez isn't actually a bad guy. He's on our side, but he was tainted by Zodiark's magic, and Zodiark, that's now Zeramus, is pulling his strings, and it's really the bad guy, a la Final Fantasy IV. Yeah, like, it's just, And that's kind of what it does. And as System put out there, it's very, very poor writing that they're trying to like zig and zag and avoid having people from Final Fantasy IV know what's going on. But it's just like it's been so much of every step of the way has been Final Fantasy IV, and it just I would have preferred if they were going to hug Final Fantasy IV so closely if they just respected the intelligence of their audience that had played that game and gave us a proper breadcrumb to follow, and had more respect for people that, yeah, we've figured it out. It's Final Fantasy IV. We know exactly how it's going to go, and you dressing it up like this is just insulting.
What's insulting is how they're treating the audience. As a writer myself, normally there's a bit of a practice that you're supposed to do, a good balance in making the audience feel satisfied with providing them with genuine answers to questions that they've been having all along, and you want to give them those breadcrumbs to keep them moving on to the next page. Feel like, that tastes good. I was right. Let's move on. Little things like that, and any of the major, actual lingering questions that people genuinely have since the very beginning have absolutely 100% not been addressed, period. And that's what's driving me crazy, because every time, let me just finish this. Every time they introduce answers, they are to questions that were immediately introduced a sentence before. So, not even imagine that you're reading the book, and you get into that section, and it's like, oh my God, what is going to happen now? Next sentence, this is what happens now. It's like there is no time for that to sit in the reader's head. No time for that to actually settle and have, do its job and get the imagination stirred up and interested. A great example is in this past MSQ, spoilers, the whole thing with the thing with the big sword, because that's pretty much all this MSQ was. This past thing is, it just answers one question that literally no one asked. Why does Golbez have a sword? And that's it. The moment we get that little flashback, we see the feat of the original Golbez, the OG Golbez, and his quote-unquote friend Durande. The moment I saw the fact the guy had a big sword on the back of his thing, I looked at that and I immediately was like, oh crap. They're gonna do a bait and switch. The Golbez is gonna be the guy with the sword, and the real Golbez isn't gonna be the guy that we're gonna fight. I immediately knew that. The instant they showed that, in that cutscene. And that's, from that point on, it was just them confirming it and making me even angrier, because I'm like, this is bullcrap. I signed up to fight Golbez, not his best friend. We aren't actually fighting Golbez in the fight. We're fighting Durande. We're fighting Golbez as a title. We're fighting the thought of Golbez, the memory of Golbez, as held up by his friend. We don't actually fight Golbez. And that really grinds my gears in ways I cannot fully express.
You see, for me, the part about the writing, if we step back a little bit towards the whole answering questions things, is if they absolutely cannot proceed the story without answering a question, they just have it where the NPCs are talking as if they've discussed it and they've had the answer, but they don't share with the class. They are so desperate to hold on to this false air of mystery that even if they have to answer a question, they don't share it with the audience.
Yes.
And it's...
Or important scenes are off camera, happen elsewhere. Things that are I guess that whole thing that we did was entirely superfluous with the whole portal underground and that thing. Because in the end, that didn't really matter. The writer didn't care because he destroyed it off screen. Oh well. There's so much I can go into. I can literally rant for hours about just how bad this writer is, and it just keeps pissing me off. I just keeps pissing on the audience and dicking them around and not giving them anything satisfactory to chew on. Because if you introduce the mystery and then answer it immediately in the exact same page, it is not a mystery whatsoever. The audience has no fun. It's stale, it's boring, it falls flat. And it's the same kind of writing that you get from streaming shows today. I swear to God, they probably picked up this guy because he's like, yes, I have a lot of writing credits with this streaming show. I wrote this streaming show and this streaming show and this streaming show. And they all have really, really bad patterns. What's the one thing that I've always heard from people, like when they said, I like this MSQ, this portion of the MSQ, they always cite one thing. They always said, it had a good start. It had a good start. It had a good start. That's what I hear people saying. Well, I liked the beginning. It had a good start. I liked how it started. What does that sound like to you? A frickin' streaming show. That's exactly what they do. They get you hooked in the beginning, and then they just string you along with stupid frickin' filler that goes nowhere because they only have a beginning and an end, and they have no idea what the hell to do in the middle, and they're just dicking around until they finally get to the end, filling time and just driving everyone crazy with how stupid this is. Sorry, that's a very aggressive rant because I'm very passionate about this subject.
You're fine. It's okay.
It's quite all right. I understand. These critiques are quite fair, I wager. But just to, I don't know, maybe veer away from the negative a little, were there any positive things about this MSQ you liked?
You are going to insert a cricket soundbite, right?
Okay, well, I'll say something. I liked the Golbez trial. I thought his voice acting was really nice. I will admit the fight was kind of underwhelming, at least for the normal.
I mean, I'm having fun with the extreme.
The extreme's not bad. It's still not as good as Barbarisha, but it's better than Rubicante.
I don't think anything's gonna. Oh God, it's leagues better than Rubicante.
Actually, Heidelin was better than like Heidelin is really up there when it comes to like Heidelin and Barbarisha were like the best that this expansion has offered so far. It's really hard for me to tell you which one of those is better. I really like them both. Unfortunately, a lot of people can't or haven't experienced Heidelin in her fullest because a lot of them go in there with current gear and they don't do it at minimum eye level, so they just obliterate her before the fight actually begins.
That's unfortunate.
So, like, they don't get to see all the good stuff that Heidelin offers, especially her final phase. Her final phase is amazing. She's just throwing everything at you, and it's really, really hectic, really busy. I like it, and you really got to coordinate. And yeah, final phase, it all comes together. Really great fight. No one really gets to the final phase anymore. So really big shame. Barbarisha, great. Rubicante can go rotten hell. Let's see. And so same with Zodiark. Like Zodiark and him can go hold hands all the way to oblivion. I don't care. I hate them both.
Zodiark is just follow the danger Dorito.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that Danger Dorito served me quite well because I am terrible with spatial awareness and recognition.
But no, as far as positives about this, about the MSQ for 6.4, I don't know. Like, it was, I will say the one positive I found and the one thing I did like was they did touch on a bit of post, like a bit of Thancred and kind of how he's grown since having to leave Reen a bit. I did appreciate a little glimpse into that because Thancred is one of the characters that I've really always enjoyed the writing of, even though he started out super cringe, because they have showed phenomenal character growth. So I do enjoy when they give us those little snippets and glimpses into, hey, what is this character doing now that his big main arc had finished and he's kind of just living with self-acceptance, having gotten over a lot of his shit and everything. So I did enjoy that they gave us that little glimpse, that little snippet.
I mean, ever since Shadowbringers, Thancred has really, I mean, he's had a lot of character development since La Habrea, like,
Yeah.
possessed him, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. So ever since then, like, you could tell even after that, he was still like this little playboy, like running around doing what he was a bachelor, you know, like the whole, like, what we assume, well, he's a fuckboy. He was. And then once Shadowbringers came around and he spent 5 years his time there, and he, you know, after Minfilia, you know, kicked the bucket and all that, and she suddenly was the voice of the Mother Crystal and all this stuff, and he really lost himself for a minute. And then when he found out that Minfilia was having reincarnations over and over and over and over again in Shadowbringers, he was pissed, right? Like, he was upset, like hardcore upset. and he went and got Minfilia, later Reen, to save her from the same fate, and that really turned him around. I think he was more angry at himself. It's funny to me that you can even see that he was more angry at himself than he ever was at anything else when it came to everything that had happened, right?
Yep.
And it's just crazy to me that we see that character development, like you were saying. Like, he has had insane character development.
I'm going to chalk that up to the continuity writer.
The other thing I would say is that I liked about the this part of the MSQ. It's a very small thing. Was I really was tickled by the confirmation that all the different shards shared a similar map. So yes, that last time we saw Minfilia, when she had us go back to Amarang for that final talk, it was one last pray thee return to the Waking Sands, because if you overlay the map, the exact point she had us to go was back to the Waking Sands.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing. I wasn't gonna say anything because I freaking hated it. Yurianjay every time when he wore that stupid robe and those goggles. Pray, return to the Waking Sands. Fight me. God, I hated the Waking Sands. I hated it so much.
That's why I love that fate. Pray, destroy the Waking Sands.
Yeah.
My
But yeah,
God.
that was another small detail that I like as a very detail oriented person, I really appreciated that they confirmed that suspicion.
Right? It was great. And now that we've unlocked travel to the 13th, guess what's next?
The Void.
I am ready. Going back to the first with everybody, going to the other reflections, hopefully. Not only that, watching Y'shtola get married, because that shit's gonna happen. I'm ready.
With her gentle little kitty boy.
Yes, I'm so ready for this.
Because
damn well
she's got to have a mission, because she's like, yes, I want to get back. Like
she's like, I've got to get back to them.
It's like I got to get back to the first. It's my utmost priority. I'm just sitting back like, why?
You know why?
You know
why?
Why is it? Was it that good? I mean,
gotta go. We don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Runar.
We don't talk about Runar at all. But I love it even now. Like, if you see their minions, they interact. Like, you know how he pops his little flower? Like, he offers a flower, Runar's minion. If you have the Y'shtola, the newer Y'shtola minion, they interact with each other, and he throws out the flower towards her. I'm ready for a wedding. Bro, give me my wedding. I want to see it. I don't give a care about all these Y'shtola sims. Give me my Y'shtola Runar wedding now. Right, meow.
Right, meow.
Right, meow.
Right, meow.
I am a cat girl. Right, meow.
Oh boy.
Speaking of cat girls,
Oh no.
I will always go back to cat girl. I'm always going to buy a Fanta, like a 3-pack Fanta, right?
Uh-huh.
But I'm about to change, not Rogan ever again.
Uppies.
We're never doing that again.
Uppies.
No, I heard that word about 37,000 times in the 2 weeks I was a Rogan, and I was done. I never realized, like, it did not cross my mind. I know we've talked about this before, but it did not cross my mind that was the thing that was gonna happen, right? And so my FC leaders and members, they kept telling me, uppies, uppies, uppies. I about nearly freaking threw them out the window, all of them. They were driving me. I'll give you your uppies. I'm gonna throw you right into the freaking wall. Cannot deal. So I'm thinking about. I haven't decided yet. So I originally, way back in the day, started out as a male aura, or not male aura. I'm brain dead. As a Thailander, and then I eventually went to male aura when that came out. And I'm thinking about female aura this time around, because I haven't been one of those in a hot minute. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm pretty excited to Fanta again. I refuse to go bunny. I've already done that a bajillion times, and there's way too many bunny girls. And to be fair, there's way too many cat girls as well.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Keeper's Master Race.
I know. Listen, Keepers is Master Race, no doubt.
Honestly, for me, it's not even the aesthetics; it's the lore behind it.
I
Just
know. I'm so ready to go to Mercidia.
Oh, me too.
Can we please, Mercidia win?
I want to see the world tree.
I have a very particular bitterness about the Viera. And the reason for that is the Viera were never originally intended to be in the game. So the Keepers of the Moon were completely and utterly modeled off Vieran society from the 12 series, like that whole universe. Yeah. And they were put in, and that's what they were supposed to be. And so by them caving to all the people whining that they wanted Viera, they've pretty much made Keepers completely and utterly obsolete, which has further solidified that we will never see any further Keeper lore or embellishments on what they have, because all they had was just they were this universe's Viera. So I've got a very definite bitterness as someone who's always been a fan of the Keepers regarding them introducing the Viera.
And I like the Seekers. The Seekers are pretty interesting as well. I mean, their lore is definitely much different. They're definitely patriarchal. They're not even patriarchal. They're full on Arabian Nights harem. So, and then you get the Keepers of the Moon, who are matriarchal, and like it's two sides of a coin, but they're vastly different. Like one side of the coin is gold and the other side of the coin is like copper or some shit. Like I don't know what's going on. But I really do enjoy their lore, but I just want Mercidia. I want to go to Mercidia. I want to see my tribes. I want to see where we're from. Like that's my whole thing. Like I would love to do that. And then we have, of course, coming out, female Rothgar. I myself am not a Rothgar fan per se. Like they're cool looking. They're a very interesting race. They are also a matriarchal society. See, they have a queen. So that's some pretty nice lore about that, is that they have a queen. And I've seen like tiny itty bitty little tidbits about this, right? Like of what they potentially might look like. And let's be fair, I might be Rothgar for a few days.
All I can say is it would give a whole new definition to the term tiger mom.
God, you and your freaking don't even. I'm gonna fight.
I will plant that seed inside your free company. You know I will.
No, if you do that, I will literally find out where you live, and I'm gonna come kick you in the butt.
Oh boy!
I'm gonna camp at your house in game every day. I don't even think I see you at your house hardly ever.
Well, I'm very rarely on Helicanarsis because I'm mostly hosting a lot of stuff on Aether.
Yeah, that's where we've been as Aether as well because of the new raids and everything. If you get a full party together, it's fairly simple to go into them. But, you know.
Speaking of which, we got to get your clear of Golbez because, oh boy, that guy is a bit of a pain in the booty on Party Finder.
Well, I'm past Eventide Fall and Triad. So Eventide Fall and Triad on Party Finder, I've been doing these, by the way.
What drives me nuts about Party Finder is that there's this popularity thing about this whole East and West crud. The fight itself, I even made a short video about it, just saying listen to the fight, is that the whole fight is saying that North and South take priority before East and West. Because what's telling you that?
Which one?
The entire fight is telling you that for all of its mechanics. But the main one that's solidifying it is Gale. Because Gale shows up 3 times.
Yeah, north, south. Because it does north or south first.
Yes.
And then it does east or west.
Correct.
And then you literally only have to remember the first and the third time that it goes through.
Correct. So, but what I'm trying to say is that Gale shows up 3 times. So because of that, it's trying the developers are trying to give you information through the fight itself on how to resolve it. And that is one of the big clues, is that North and South will always precede East and West. And that is basically how you should resolve your mechanics. And a lot of people on Party Finders, particularly for the Void Stardust, they will do East and West. And that's a problem. Because half of the time, East and West will give you a very weird combination. Like, if you are not resolving it appropriately, like if you were doing North and South, it makes perfect sense because it's always the same resolution every time. It makes perfect sense.
That's what we've been doing is north-south.
A lot of parties out there are not. And those are either parties that are either having trouble or are just making the fight harder for themselves without realizing it, because they're just, someone told them to do it this way, or they thought this was the best way to do it, but it's not, because when you actually get to Void Stardust, 50% of those outcomes are very scuffy and are actually more complicated for half of the people doing that mechanic. But if you just kept it north and south, where group 1 is always north no matter what, and in south if it's group 2 no matter what, it makes perfect sense, because it's literally the exact same resolution every single time with no variation, no weirdness. Nothing's in a weird location. It's all just, it follows together perfectly. And that's what drives me nuts, is that you will always have some weird group out there that's like, we do it east and west. But like, why? Like, the vast majority of the fight is telling you north and south.
I mean, I know complacency is real big in Party Finder. Like, I understand. But come on, like, you're making it difficult for later down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just do it the way it's intended, and we won't have any issues.
Some people would argue that there is no way to know how it's intended.
Oh my
it's
God,
interpretation.
common sense.
But I'm just saying, Gale's in there 3 times. It's very clear. It's the only mechanic that's really in there 3 times. So that's a big, humongous clue. Everything else is 2. Gale is the only one that's 3. And because of that, it should supersede anything else because it's in there 3 times. Therefore, even though you don't really have to do anything fancy for the first Gale, the first Gale's in there for a reason. It's great practice. I mean, you can still practice all of your alignments. You can still have group 1 in the north of that, group 2 in the south of that. You can do all of your alignment practice in the first phase over and over and over again as many times as you like. And if you can see if anyone's flubbing it up, you can just wall it and restart it. You can get Gale down without even having to go through the entire fight. It's right there. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was very nice of them. But a lot of people don't. Every time that first Gale comes up, I even call it, if you ever listen to my call-outs, I'm like, here comes some Gale practice, because that's what it is. It's just a practice phase for Gale. It never changes. All it does is just add a group stack before or after, enumeration before or after. Everything else is literally the same. Nothing changes. I digress. Sorry.
It's okay. No, I understand. I was just listening. You're good. I understand completely. I get where you're coming from.
But yeah, I can go ahead and help you out where you're clear. I've been helping out people all week. Whew, boy. I got that day 1 clear and just been teaching since then. It's never nonstop teaching. So, yeah. It's a decent fight. I wouldn't say it's the most fun, but definitely it's one of those that you got to have 100% of your attention on. If there's any momentary distraction, like phone ring, text, a kid poking you in the butt, a cat jumping on your lap, you're probably going to fail.
Family blowing up your phone.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Literally, you said that, and my cat jumped up on my lap. Oh my God.
It's a clue. It's a sign.
It's a sign.
My biggest thought about it is, like, one of the things and this is kind of a gripe about Party Finder in general, because as I briefly touched on, I've up to this point gotten majority of my clears in most things through Party Finder, is people jumping into Party Finder groups they're not ready for. Like, this is a little bit of a gripe, because it's stuff like, using this fight as an example, the sheer number of Gale 2 prog parties I joined that in the whole hour-long lockout never got to Gale 2 once because they couldn't get past towers. There's it's Party Finder can be such a frustrating beast, because so many people, the moment they glimpse at a mechanic once, they're like, oh, well, that's the groups I join now. And it's like, no, you shouldn't be joining a party at a prog point unless you can reliably get yourself to that point.
That's why I tell people if I'm doing a teaching thing, and if I had to use LB3 and the vast majority of them, I'm had to pull off the freaking floor, and we got all the way to Enrage, and he's still about 20% of his HP, I'll turn to them and I'll be like, this does not mean that you've seen Enrage. Just because you are literally seeing Enrage with your eyes, this does not mean you've seen Enrage. Like, You are not at Enrage. This is not your prog point. You are not here. You are many, many, many mechanics back. Like, if you are dead and on the floor and not interacting, just because you see the mechanic with your eyeballs doesn't mean you're at that prog point. I am agreeing with you.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
but that is definitely something, especially with this fight. Like, I've encountered it more with this particular fight than anything else I've done through Party Finder. That people are just not jumping into groups where they're actually at. And they, like, I feel like Party Finder would be a far more enjoyable experience because I've met some awesome people through Party Finder and I've had a lot of fun in there. But I feel like it would be a lot more positive if people would just get the message of, yes, it kind of sucks when you've got to keep going back to the same point, but you shouldn't be jumping ahead of where you're actually at just because you want to get your clear faster. Because all you're doing is all you're doing is really making it take longer for you to get that clear in the end.
It's very tempting. I mean, even like when I was going through day one, I would get to, it was at that sort of Gale 2 point. And I was just like, it's so tempting looking at all these other parties that are further ahead. And you just want to jump in. You just want to go, you just want to get into that because it's another party. You don't want to start from scratch again. You just want to get in there and just kind of go like, yeah, I'm past that point. But in reality, I wasn't. So I never did ever jump into any of those parties. At the end of the day, I just kept hosting my own and just kept buckling down and being more with this, like the further and further I got in the fight, I became more and more and more strict about who I was letting in and how we were going to do things. And I would always spend several minutes in the beginning of the fight going over, okay, everybody, this is how we are going to do it. I don't care what other party you were in before. This is how we are doing it in this party. And I'm spending 5 minutes going over that because I don't want you doing what you were doing in another party and messing up my party. This is my party. This is how we do it in my party. And there's a lot of people that don't go over that and they just write it on the comments. They just jump right in and they think like, didn't you read? No, people don't read. What do you think you are? Like, what game are you playing? You're playing Final Fantasy XIV where no one reads at all.
Yeah.
I do feel that. Thinking back to people joining savage PF groups and then promptly saying, oh, this I've only ever done normal, and then promptly being removed.
Only ever done normal? What? Huh?
Someone joined a while back in a group I was in. Someone joined our Party Finder listing for, I think, natural alignment. But then they mentioned they hadn't actually ever stepped into a savage.
Huh? Natural alignment is way over phase 2. It's a boss he hasn't even seen before.
Indeed, I was confused by that also. I think what happened was the person who was running the party forgot to put restrictions on it, so someone just wanted to test their luck, see if we wouldn't notice.
Well, ain't that a doozy? Well, there you go.
I don't know if that was a lack of reading comprehension or they just had an admirable level of audacity.
And the lion, the witch, the audacity of this. Oh, wait, I can't say
that.
Sorry,
I know where that was going.
I didn't say it. No beeping allowed. I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Insert chocobo noise. Quahoo!
Quahoo! Quah! Alpha.
Well, we should be starting to find our closing subjects. Anything anybody really want to talk about before we start wrapping up?
A little thing, actually, I can think of. I was thinking, Morsheira, you know a great deal about the lore, right?
Yes, I'm a little bit obsessive about the lore. Like, I won't ever deny that.
Well, I forgot to get a little query in edgewise when we were talking about the pandemonium stuff.
Yes.
Namely the High Seraph Ultima. The revelations about the heart of Sabik and all of that brought a whole bunch of little questions to my mind. Mainly, how old is Ultima? If I remember right, she was the source of all of this Auracite. The fact that she was interacting with the ancients, perhaps way back when.
I don't think that ever really been established how old she is. Like, it's always been left like a very, very vagueness.
Yeah, they might not ever tell us how old.
Yeah, because I know one thing that was mentioned was that that the aura site itself may not have originated from the star. So, what if that begs the question that Ultima herself may have been some sort of extant alien life?
I mean, I do think it is very, very likely, just because they really, really made it clear just how far-reaching and deep the universe universe is. Especially at the end of Endwalker, when we were going through Ultima Thule and everything, the sheer number of worlds they talked about and glimpses of we saw in relation to the Endsinger, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if she is from another world, and we'll never know how old she is, because they've already made it clear that there's a very large number of worlds out there where the people were basically, through one means or another, immortal. Like, even on Aetheris, there were the ancients that were pretty much immortal. There were the dragons that were immortal. The Ea went and made themselves immortal, and
Indeed. And not to mention the sad gold people.
Oh
Yep.
yes, the sad gold people. I can't deal with them. The EA crack me up. But there is one more point I want to bring up, and it has nothing to do with 6.4. Hell, it probably hasn't have anything to do since Heaven's Word. But there is one person we keep forgetting. The kid inside of the Rising Stones, inside of Minfilia's office, that unlocks
Mika.
our extremely
Mika?
whatever his name. He was like an Asian, like he's a former Asian that hasn't gotten his memories back or something, or has now, or
Isn't
He
he one of the
wasn't-
first right
he-
now?
He wasn't an Asian. He was one of the warriors of light from the 13th.
Was he?
And yes, and he's on the first.
I don't remember anything much about him, but I feel like the devs have forgotten about him.
No, they took him through with one of the job quests, like the role quests or whatever. And he's on the first now, helping train up Black Mage Kid. And everything. 'Cause they
I
knew each
remember that
other,
kid.
They knew each other way before and all that stuff.
There is one thing I did want to mention before we close up for the day. It's almost a slightly different subject, so if anybody wanted to mention more about Kiddo, now do so now before I destroy everybody.
Nope, that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I don't know if you guys remember one of my rants from our previous podcast. I was talking about one of the most obvious bosses from Final Fantasy IV that we were not seeing. And it was driving me crazy because I was expecting her day one of Endwalker, at least a dungeon boss, something, anything. And that was Ashura. You know who I'm referring to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you Final Fantasy IV fans, or hasn't, if you check out podcast discussion, you'll see what I mean by Ashura, which is the multi-armed, multi-headed wife of Leviathan.
Okay, so don't come at me, but can I spoil something for you guys?
That's what I was about to get into, was spoiler territory. So I think we're on the same subject.
So I have this. Some of y'all know I have a bit of redacted magic, and I was looking for a specific model per se.
Uh-huh.
And guess who I found?
I wonder.
I wonder.
Here's another spoiler. Do you know why you found her?
Because I'm not sure. I don't want to make any suggestions.
Do you want to know why?
Tell me. Tell me.
She's the final EX of the series.
Oh, I'm so excited. Wait, come on.
Yes. It is confirmed because if you've kept in track of what they're going to be doing with FanFest, she's going to be the FanFest fight.
Yep.
I figured, okay,
Yep.
so this is going to sound weird, but I've seen some things on Twitter because hashtag spoilers on Twitter all the time. So I found the model. I found a little ghosty version of her too, like one that's made out of yellow light, and you can tell it's her because it's all of her little arms, and it looks like her to me, like a high def version of her to me. And then I also found some funky little models for what potentially might be some more line things.
Mm-hmm.
So some of her moves.
Some of her mechanics.
And I wasn't meaning to do this now. I honestly was only looking for the Shadow Wolf. I'm
Oh.
so excited for this, honestly. It looks so cute. It's creepy.
But thing is that's not it. Well, thing is that's the Shadow Wolf from the Eden raids. You actually fight him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's but the thing is with
Fair.
that one, not a new model. See, my brain is gone. It's not a model. It's not a mount model that we've seen before, though.
It looks like a
Like, you know how they keep reskinning Fenrir?
yeah. That looks like a reskinned Behemoth.
A little bit. Or Behemoth, does
Yeah,
it?
because if you remember the Shadow fight, he stands up as well, which is what Behemoths do. So he has a
Yeah.
Behemoth core skeleton.
Of course he does. I'm still waiting on Dalamud as a mount. Okay, thanks.
Love
That'll
that.
probably be the like what probably someone day 1, day 2, someone will immediately make that as a like a redacted magic version of him.
I think I've seen some already, but I want the actual thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But that Shadow Wolf, I'm so excited because it's super creepy looking and I really want it. And it says that when brought into the light, the wolf can seem less fearsome. Pumpkin-headed apparition.
I could see it being a morgue station thing someday.
Well, like I said, that would definitely take the sting off having the cute adorbs little lizard thing, whatever.
Oh, what? See, there's so many people pissed off about the axolotl being locked behind Savage.
Well, the thing is, it's not that it's locked behind Savage. It's the fact that it is the Savage. Just like, oh, because normally it's like a big, grand, fantastic, woo, don't you want this mount? And this is like, oh.
I think you underestimate how many people absolutely love axolotl system.
Well, when
Yeah.
you sit there and really look at what an axolotl is, it falls right in with the whole theme of the raid tier because an axolotl is basically a tadpole phase and it will only really become a full salamander if very specific conditions are met. With very specific
Yeah.
conditions, it will ascend, which is the whole thing that Athena was trying to do. So it despite its cutesy design, it is very on point for the overarching theme.
I agree.
Indeed.
Hmm.
So I can understand why they did it, even if the model itself is kind of cutesy wootsy and not as grand as we're used to seeing.
Honestly, I want it. I just want it. I want it so hard. I will literally. So I don't have any need or want to go fight freaking Daddy La Habrea's evil twin in order to do that. I don't care. But for this, oh, I will fight Athena every single day for this damn mount. I'll do it. I don't care how long it takes. I want it. And that's not just me, system. That's a lot of people.
Well, there you go. I guess here's the thing. They understand their audience more than I do because all they got this to me just looks like another fat cat. And I'm just like, "Oh, well here we go."
But the fat cat is cute.
Exactly. And I'm just saying that's what I look at it. I'm just like, well, considering the big success of the fat cat, I guess they've milked that cow. Now we're going to get into the axolotl crowd. Now it's going to be a whole bunch of pink hoodies and pink chairs and pink pillows. So it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Any major closing comments before we start wrapping?
No, I think
No.
I'm good.
As am I.
Morsheira, any major things you want to mention?
No, just a great big thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
'Twas a pleasure.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we'll start wrapping up. So, anywho, thank you everybody for listening to Back to Party Finder, and we'll hope to see you again in the future. For now, I'd like to go ahead and thank those who've been joining us today. That would be the lovely Runa. Thank you.
Hi, bye.
The beautiful Belle.
Bye.
And of course, Xivan.
Take care. And as I often say, GGTYFP.
Mm-hmm. And our lovely guest today, Morsheira.
Ta-ta.
So once again, that was Back to Party Finder. See you next time.